Okay, now that the whole trailer is all hooked up, we got the chains crossed, the 7-pin in. The next things you want to check before heading out on your adventure is you want to make sure your brakes, your lights and flashers are working, your blinkers. You also want to make sure your ride height is set properly, and then you want to walk around, check everything inside and outside of the trailer, make sure things are stowed away properly, everything's put into a good spot where it's not going to fall while you're traveling. So one of the first things that I'm going to do is I'm going to be checking all of my doors, all my cabinet doors. This one's already locked, which is great. Generally, if they're not locked, you do have a key that works all your compartment doors and your main door. So you can see that that's now open. You know, just check everything, make sure nothing's sitting in a weird position. This is gonna lock down, and then I always make sure I lock my doors and I go around and check everything. Obviously, if you go back and stand pretty far back, it's maybe hard to capture this in the video, but just by eyeing it, you can tell the tongue of the truck and the trailer are actually up pretty high, and that this is kind of slanting backwards. Now, generally, with the stock or the shear spring, the rubber shear spring suspension, the way you're going to adjust that is by getting a drop hitch off the truck, and we can set you up with that. Since we have the air suspension, we can lift the trailer up and have it ride more level. The goal is try to be riding as level as possible. So when the trailer goes onto the truck, if it squats the truck too much, you might want to get airbags or weight distribution hitch. Or you can adjust the suspension on the trailer with the air suspension, which is pretty cool. Before we do that, I'm gonna just do a quick walk around and check everything, make sure things are nice, and see, we would wanna lock this door, and then of course walk around. We're gonna make sure your water heater door is good. This is for your water stuff. Of course, we're gonna wanna disconnect your shore power, and also when you shut this, there's a little clip you can hear. Make sure that clips. Otherwise, while you're driving, the wind's gonna catch it and it's gonna be flopping around. So just double check all of those things. And then you're gonna come down over here. Once again, make sure this door is locked as well. And then in the front area, you'll just wanna make sure these doors are shut, nice and sturdy. These do not have locks, and that's because you can't legally lock a propane tank behind something. So these are always they will not have locks, but you do definitely want to make sure they're shut before you get going. Now we go inside, check everything inside, and then we'll check our lights and then level the trailer and get going. Okay, as we come inside, obviously the most important things are sometimes people will have stuff on the counters. A lot of times what I'll do is we'll put things in sinks. If you have knickknacks or little plants, you just store them. Obviously this cutting board, you don't want it sitting out here. You want it on the sink spot, or you can put it in a cupboard. A good practice is just kind of check your cabinets. You know, you can kind of grab them. These are locking cabinets. So generally when they're locked, it's going to be engaged and locked, but it's a good practice just to kind of make sure it got shut and locked. So just go through, kind of make sure everything is shut, and then just make sure everything's in place and there's nothing loose sitting out. Make sure your TV's strapped down. You know, you can tighten that a little bit. It does have a locking mechanism behind there as well, but I would always go through, just make sure all the doors, everything's put away, and then also make sure these are all locked. So this would not be locked. This is locked in. One of the things that you got to be extra careful about is over in the bathroom, like this cupboard, see, it was open. So we're going to want to shut it. And then also open your windows and make sure these are all latched in, right? Somebody left the blind up and I wouldn't have known if that window was unlatched. So it's important to do that. Also the fridge, it's good to kind of give a little tug on everything. This is something that I do whenever I'm out camping. I just want to, you know, I don't want to, you know, maybe somebody shut it and thought it was shut, but it was cracked a little bit and it would fly open. So you just want to make sure it's shut and locked. Coming over here, see, once again, this blind is up. So I'm going to always drop, well, and there you go. That would have been a disaster because this was actually open. So air could have been flying through here. Dust could have come in. So we're going to lock that in. and make sure all your windows are completely shut. I'll go over more window details later, but just make sure everything's shut. Now you can, once you shut everything, you can put these blinds up because it's gonna make it, if you're going somewhere in the summer and it's really hot, you can shut all your blinds and keep it a little bit cooler while you're traveling. And then everything looks good for now. The other thing that I would recommend is always making sure you turn off your water heater. Your propane appliances should technically all be off. If you ever pull into a gas station, most states it's the law to have everything turned off. So don't have your furnace running, your water heater, or your water pump, because if you ever spring a leak while you're driving, you would have no idea and the water would just be pumping out. So just turn everything off when you're in transit. The fridge always stays on because that's a battery operated fridge, so it's not propane. So that's okay to leave on when you go into a gas station. Gonna go to my home page and see water pump is off, water heater is off, and now all of our interior lights are off. So and then also these lights. Let's head on outside now. As a disclaimer, if you do have the upgraded Four Seasons trailer, when you're traveling down the road, you definitely will want the heated tanks on, and you will also want the furnace running. So you will turn the furnace on and have it run while you're driving, because you don't want that cold air. You don't want things freezing, any water lines freezing, because the trailer is gonna turn into an ice box if you're driving without the heat running. So you'll definitely wanna run the heat while you drive if it's below freezing temperatures. When you get to a gas station, like I mentioned, you'll wanna turn off the furnace, fill up your gas, and then when you pull away from the pump, you can jump back in there, turn the furnace back on. It's pretty simple. When you're just always want your heater on when you're somewhere below 32 degrees. Or 0 Celsius. Okay. And now the last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna make sure this door is all the way open, and then you're gonna lift up your beautiful MORryde steps, and you're gonna pull this lever, make sure it actually goes beyond this lip, and it's locked in so it actually can't come out now. You're gonna shut this door, and I would recommend locking the deadbolt. It's always best if you lock the deadbolt, which is this top one, and that's just going to hold the door better engaged while in transit on the highways. If you have the deadbolt in, that door will never fly open while you're driving off-road or on the highway. Sometimes if you lock just the door latch, sometimes you can get enough movement that that door could pop open. With the deadbolt, I've never seen a door come open. So just make sure you always lock the deadbolt while you're driving, especially off-road. Highway is not as important, but definitely for off-roading. Now that we've stowed everything away and everything is secure, we now want to level it out. I've kind of put it really high up right now just to showcase that we're kind of leaning sideways. Also, it's a good idea to grab a little bubble level, and you can come up here to the front tongue. And essentially, you're going to put this on the front tongue, and you want to be level going this way while you're towing. And then obviously if we go this way, right now the bubble is going this way, which means we need to bring down the trailer. We need to drop it down to get it more level as we're traveling. Another thing is these indicators. I want to showcase these indicators. You can see this indicator is now pointing pretty far into the red, and you want to get it closer to the green. It doesn't have to be exact, but you definitely want to get it in there to some degree. So I've just pulled up the app, and I've gone to the, from the home page, I go over to this little picture of the tire and the suspension, and I'm just going to press down, and you'll notice this. Watch this. As I press down, it's going to drop that down. And now if I step away, I'm going to kind of get a good visual of it. It looks like it still needs to come down a little bit more. So the cool thing about this app right here is it does have the ability so you can control them in tandem. So they both drop at the exact same time, or you can go back and forth either side. So I'm going to bring that down a little bit more. If you step back, it looks like it's riding pretty level with the truck now. You can, like I said, you can get bubble levels, and you can kind of get the measurement that way. You can also pull out a tape measure to measure. You can indicate by the green. There's not necessarily a perfect or one way of doing it. The goal is you're trying to get as level as possible. One of the things that I'm generally doing is I am checking that I am in the green, but there's a lot of different, you know, height between being in the green on both sides. So I'm gonna go like this, and I'm gonna measure that, and that's gonna be about, that's about 5 1/4 right there. If you wanted to do a fist with your thumb up, you could do that if you don't have a tape measure handy. But that's not gonna work for every vehicle because every truck is gonna be a little bit different. But let's come back over here. Same, so right here, we're almost closer to 5 1/2. So we definitely wanna bring it down a little bit. And that's about 5 1/4. Yep, 5 1/4. And that's about a thumb and a fist in height. And if you step back and you look at the truck, it does look like it's riding pretty level at this point. And it's also in the green on the tab. Gonna be a little bit different according to tow vehicle, but that looks pretty dang level to me. Yeah, that's almost perfectly right in the dead center. I measured it on both sides, about 5 1/4. You know, it's in the green, and my bubble level says I'm perfectly level side to side. As far as my truck goes, I'm pretty spot on back to back. So I am riding pretty dang level, and that's what you want for a good towing experience. A lot of people don't realize if your tongue is diving, that's going to induce more sway. If it's up too high, you're just gonna distribute the weight of the trailer in different directions. So you really do want to be riding as level as possible, and you can do that with a tape measure or a bubble level. I personally just kind of eye it because I've been doing it so long, and I just kind of say, you know, does it look like it's running pretty level? And if it is, I'm usually pretty happy, and then I go to tow it. Now, some of the things that I do want to mention, it does matter how you load or pack your trailer, because you don't want to be packing everything to one side or the other. Obviously, you have a kitchen on the driver's side, and you're going to put pots and pans over there. That's probably okay because you have your battery bank on the opposite side. So when they're designing the trailer, they do think that through, where, like, you know, more weight on the booth because of the battery bank. So that allows you to put more weight into the kitchen and not throw the trailer off balance too much. But a lot of mistakes that people make is they put too much weight, you know, in this front storage compartment, where they put too much weight on the tongue, or maybe, you know, you'll start putting you'll get a cargo box in the back of your trailer that you'll install and throw your bricks in there. Do not do that. That's gonna put the trailer out of balance on the back. So it's all about being wise. You know, if you're gonna store something heavy towards the back in the bathroom, make sure you counterbalance that with storing it in the front too. It's always this balance game. It's really not that big of a deal. A lot of times people just throw in whatever they want. They go camping, never even notice it at all. But some people do get a little out of control, you know, and they bring canned goods and food storage because they're using this as their prepper trailer, and they've put tons of stuff in the wrong areas that kind of throw off the balance. So just be aware of it. Usually it's not a big deal, and the manufacturer's already kind of thought a lot of this through, and that's the way they designed it. But just be aware for a better towing experience overall. These trailers tow really good as long as you have a 1500 F-150 or Silverado 1500 or Ram 1500 or bigger, you're gonna have a good towing experience with the reboots. But I now wanna check my lights and make sure everything's working. Obviously, when you get here, we'll do this with you, but I'm trying to show you how you do it if you were all by yourself, because sometimes you might be hooking up, the wife might be out running errands, and you need to hook up and make sure everything's working. So I'm gonna go in, gonna turn on my truck, I'm gonna turn on my running lights, and then I'll walk around and check all my running lights, and then I'll turn on the flashers to make sure those are working, which will indicate that the blinkers are working. So let's do that. Okay, so I'm gonna just fire up my truck, and most trucks nowadays, if it's a new truck, it's always gonna be on auto, which you won't be able to tell in the daytime. So you're gonna have to turn it off auto and on to just your regular running lights. And you can walk around and check your running lights right now, but I'm also gonna engage my emergency flashers, because that's gonna turn on both of my blinkers, and then I'll be able to check to see if my blinkers are working. The only thing that I'm not gonna be able to check by myself is my brake lights. You'll want somebody to help you on that. But you can see immediately up top, we got 2 running lights, marker lights. Right here, we have marker lights. If you look at the back of my truck, I got my flashers going, which are my blinkers. Come through here, we have marker lights, marker light, marker light. And then of course we have our emergency flashers, your left and right. Your emergency flashers are your blinkers. So if both of them are flashing, you'll know your blinkers are working. You have your marker lights up here. That's a backup light and a brake light, which we won't be able to test right now, but you can look down through here. We have all of our marker lights on your wheel wells. Everything is looking good. So at this point, besides my brakes, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to hit the road and drive and go camping. So there you have it. Let's get going.